like to go ahead and take these bridges now, and let's see what we want to do. Okay, so Gretchen, this one's for you, even though you just got done there and you're trying to catch your breath. To what extent does the city zoning and permitting staff review architectural design to ensure that poor design does not further mar our skyline? E.g. the backs of one of the buildings that's being built. Form-based code apparently missed out on this one, but what do we have on that?
Yeah, the form-based code really deals with how buildings address the street. It doesn't address how buildings address property lines. So there's no requirements, special requirements, I should say, that deals with that. So form-based codes on primary streets have a lot of architectural requirements, but it's not, it's more about windows and their openings and their shape, the opacity, the requirement for expression lines to make sure roof pitches are the right ones. There are guidelines in the back of the zoning code that we use to try and make suggestions to designers. But for the most part, from a taste standpoint, all we can do is make recommendations and suggestions. But if they're meeting the technical requirements of the form-based code, we are required to sign off on it.
All right. Jamie, I think this one's for you. With Sarasota's historical legacy as a center for the arts, this individual wonders why creative media is not a target industry that we're seeking out. It seems to play into our strengths and adds to our community vibrancy.
Well, I think that it certainly would be. I was limited by, I think, space. I was trying to just keep it to a couple slides. So under each one of those targeted industries, there's a list of probably 10 or 12 sub-industries, and I would think that creative media would certainly be part of that. That'd be something that we would welcome here.
So any plans for a pedestrian overpass from the Weston over 41 to the downtown area?
No, not at this time.
All right, well then how about this one? Is anybody aware of a plan to get people across Tamiami Trail to get to the Bayfront from downtown? Anyone can take it.
Yeah, so with these roundabouts, the Florida Highway Department of Transportation will not allow the city to put mid-block crossings in until the roundabouts are in. With the roundabouts, there'll be pedestrian-controlled stops. You know, lights will be flashing to alert drivers to stop and let pedestrians cross at pedestrian crossings. That will be a part of those roundabouts when they're put in at Fruitville and Gulfstream.
You know, as a former Parks and Rec guy, I'm seeing an opportunity for a zip line system. I mean, we got to do something. You know, I was just reading a book last night, autobiography of Jack West, where he talks about his proposal that the city, they got $25,000 together to come up with a plan to build that pedestrian bridge back in the 1960s, but it never moved forward. Gretchen, this one's probably for you. Just a little short status of the Dolphin Tower. What's going on there?
They're getting real close to moving back in. The main construction issues have been resolved. They're now working on the individual units. The whole entire fourth floor had been, all the units were eliminated during the repair that was needed. So they're being rebuilt, and then as they stabilized the building, they actually had to go into all of the units on every floor on the ends and in the middle and do some stabilization work, and so all of that is now going, getting repaired as well. So it's getting close.
All right, thank you so much. And Jamie, this one's for you. Doesn't EDC focus on marine science, digital arts and media, sports performance, and health innovation, life sciences, not the long list that you shared? This person's thinking it's a more focused approach.
Well, it certainly is all of those things. One of the other things that was not listed that we would, I think, welcome would be public and private universities or colleges. And so I don't know if you all saw recently, the University of Florida's Engineering College is opening what they're calling an innovation station. So that is an engineering hub that we believe will bring, it's kind of misconstrued a little bit, where it sounded in the newspaper like it was to attract students to the University of Florida. Their engineering college really doesn't have that problem, but it's to try to get engineering students who graduate back into our community using that innovation hub as a major resource as they develop their new businesses.
Gretchen, this is probably a real simple one. What are the height restrictions for Bayfront buildings?
Bayfront is considered 18 stories if you're zoned downtown Bayfront, but a story is finished floor to finished ceiling of 14 feet, and then the interstitial space is unlimited. So from that point, the building height will vary according to the story that they're building and the interstitial space that they have.
Thank you. I don't know what interstitial space is.
Interstitial is basically the beams that are supporting it, any HVAC system, anything that you would see between the finished ceiling and the finished floor up above, anything they can put in there. And so some people are being generous because they want a somewhat taller building, but that was done by design specifically to create a skyline that had various heights. You know, if you put a height limit of 180 feet, which is what we had under CCBD, every building was 180 feet, and it creates a boring skyline. So by having a variety of kind of basing it on what the builder wants, you create a more interesting skyline.
Thank you. Now, Virginia, this one's for you. Do visitors come to Sarasota for the arts? And if so, is there any percentage? Well, actually, this is going to be a shared response. So first, do they come here for the arts?
Absolutely. That is one of our key drawing points, and it's obviously a way that we talk about Sarasota as opposed to all those other Florida beach destinations. And one of the things we've been doing is getting more targeted. So instead of just going and talking to people in New England, we go to Tanglewood and do events in Tanglewood because we know those are genuine art lovers. They're people who are really enthusiastic, and they have the potential of becoming future donors for us, for our arts groups.
Ah, that's key. That's important. Now, here's another one that you might not be able to answer, but you might, but someone here will. Is there any percentage of project funds dedicated to public art?
I can. It's part of your, if you're in the downtown CRA area, for projects that are over $250,000, other than for an individual condominium owner, you won't have to do that. But if for your entire condominium or any of these other projects, they have to put into the public art fund 1/2 of 1% of their development costs, up to a maximum of, I think it's $500,000. So with that, with all these projects, the public art fund is getting quite big. All the roundabouts Norm was talking about are going to be recipients at some time in the future of public art. There's a lot of these projects are trying to identify public art that they can then donate and put into one of the roundabouts.
And in April, at Orange and Main, you'll see sculpture installed at that roundabout.
Very good.
Could I mention one little thing?
Sure.
I'm not sure if people realize
Sure.
too that when visitors stay in a hotel, they pay an extra 5% over and above the sales tax, the tourist development tax, or the bed tax. Now more than $1 million of that money goes directly into cultural tourism arts grants. And Sarasota County, through that grant program, sadly, has been investing more in cultural groups than this whole state of Florida has.
Wow. Just from the little,
Just from
a
the
little
little
fraction
that little
of the
piece
penny.
of, yes.
Yeah, that's great. So, Jamie, this trial by fire for you, brother. 3 months in.
How am I doing?
We'll see with this one. In Sarasota, and others might help to respond, but in Sarasota's quest to attract young people, why are there no apparent plans to develop North Tamiami Trail around the 3 colleges, say from 14th Street all the way up to the airport?
So there actually are plans. In fact, there's a delegation heading to Washington, D.C. to request funding from Secretary of Transportation Anthony Fox to accelerate the funding for the roundabouts. Lou Solomon, this is a great thing about y'all retiring here to Sarasota. You bring such great brain power and experience. Lou and Susan Payne worked with me on a white paper that we're presenting to Secretary Fox that identifies around 4 roundabouts from university, from New College down to MLK to where Ringling School of Arts and Design is, these economic hubs, innovation districts that we're calling. And we projected numbers of how much stimulus installation of the roundabouts and accessories to the mobility, pedestrian paths, bikeways and such will stimulate, and it's quite substantial. So we are looking at those areas.
And if I could
Thank you.
just
Yeah, go ahead.
follow up on that too, as part of the form-based code that the Urban Design Studio is working on, they're looking at transit hubs up in that area to try and encourage, have kind of add additional potential for density in exchange for doing affordable housing or having different transit models, and they're specifically targeting North Trail.
We could have a whole forum just on North Trail in terms of what the opportunities are and the challenges and all of that. Now here's one, I have to commend this individual. This person wrapped editorial into their question. So I'll open this up to anyone who would like to reply. Why is the city and county seeking to grab fees as much as possible instead of a more educated planning that would avoid monstrosities like the view?
It's not for me, I think. I don't know if, I'll just say, I don't think it's a grab for fees. And I think the impact fees that I was talking about is actually a way of trying to slow development. Because obviously the more it costs to do a project, the more they have to think about whether or not they want to do it. And so maybe some folks won't come to the city of Sarasota, and that will slow development down. So I'm not sure it's necessarily a grab for fees in that sense, if we're talking about the impact fees.
Well, thank you for taking the courage to respond to that question. I'm saving a couple of the best ones for last, so here's a good one. What happens when traffic from Fruitville roundabouts meets the traffic from US 41 roundabouts?
That's normal.
We get a roundabout.
I think this is what John Nolan called the Ringling Circus, by the way.
Yes.
So right now, if you're on 41 turning onto Fruitville, from either direction, it's one lane. It's staggered, north and then south. Roundabouts will work. There have been very few accidents in roundabouts. There have been no fatalities in roundabouts in the U.S. And I would encourage you, there's a discussion going on now about Fruitville Road, and in about maybe 45 days or so, there'll be the next community workshop. Fruitville Road is proposed to have 3 roundabouts on it that will better connect the Rosemary district with the downtown between Coconut and Orange. And then there's other improvements from Orange up to 301. So they should work. All the modeling indicates it works. We're doing a worst case scenario, the city traffic engineer and staff, of what the capacity will be. And right now it looks pretty good.
And one thing that I've learned in my vast experience is, it was from the city of Sarasota when the engineer came, is that the roundabouts don't necessarily save time. They're not going to cost a whole lot of extra time moving traffic, but it is exponentially safer for pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicle traffic. So really, to me, a lot of what we're doing is improving quality of life because we're saving lives by having roundabouts.
All right. Well, and the very last question that I have a card for here, which is probably good, we've run over a little bit time-wise. This person also, in their own creative spirit, they have their editorial on one side and a question on the other. So first I'll read their statement. And they refer to a statement made here, a city is either growing or dying. Agreed. But there's growth and then there's growth. I don't see how our downtown is going to handle all this vis-a-vis parking, traffic, overcrowded beaches, and that sort of thing. So that's kind of the editorial. And then for the panel, at what point did the benefits of growth begin to be outweighed by congestion and a loss of this being our town as opposed to a tourist playground? How's this factored into growth initiatives moving forward?
Well, I think in terms of the new hotel rooms, again, one of the positives of that particular kind of growth is you're looking at having people all year round, not just in season, which is a plus. And most of the people coming to those hotels will park their car if they have one, and that will be the end of it. So I think having the water transportation to get them to the beach and the ability to walk around, you do not want to go out and have a lovely dinner and lovely glasses of wine and get in a car and drive in a strange city. It's a sure way to a DUI. So you're going to see people who are walking from these hotels and who are taking advantage of the existing transportation.
Well, and I think, I don't know really the answer to all of that. One thing that I think I maybe didn't expand upon that I will take the opportunity to do so now is when we're talking about affordable housing, there's probably at least 4 different types of affordable housing. Maybe transitional housing, which somebody mentioned a project that probably could fall under that. Senior affordable housing. When the Economic Development Corporation is talking about affordable housing, for lack of a better term, it's economic development housing. It's workforce housing for police, firefighters, waiters, waitresses, the people who make our quality of life here, And to expect people to have families and travel an hour or more to live in Northport or Arcadia is kind of unfair for us as a community to expect that of the people who are working for us. And the second type is what I kind of categorize as millennial housing. I think you could also throw empty nesters into that, or you could call it urban housing, where people are willing to live in smaller spaces with more density and in a walkable, livable community. So when we're having this affordable housing conversation as a community, all types of affordable housing are needed. I'm not saying to pick one over the other, but I think we need to understand when we're talking about an affordable housing project that it probably is geared towards marketing to one of those 4 subsets. And so we need to ensure that we are focused on the type of affordable housing that's needed to diversify our economy.
Sarasota is becoming an urbanized community. The rules that are in place, that were put in place 20-some years ago, are allowing all of this growth to take place. How it's being done is what the struggle is on keeping a community vibrant and active and not overwhelming. So we have the form-based code being developed. We have neighborhoods such as the Rosemary looking at how they can get more parks and green space in them, how we can get more trees. It's really through the involvement of citizens such as yourself and others that help shape the theme and the flavor of the community as we move forward. So if we asked our great-grandparents, they would be complaining about the growth way back then. The first road in Sarasota, as you say.
Hey, that first car.
First car. Which today, by the way, they had to have their own mechanic come with them because they didn't have any down here. So it's really a generational type of change that we see all throughout our lives. It's not the youth of the Sarasota of our youth, but with our help and our guidance and our input, it could be the Sarasota that is appropriate and sustainable and fulfills all the requirements that Jamie was talking about for livability.
I'll just mention that, with those mobility fees, even though we may get fees, we still need the people in order to support alternative methods of transportation. You know, we've tried having trolleys, but there just was never enough people to ride the trolley to make it worth having. And so you still need a little bit more of a population in order to support the alternative methods of transportation that will get people off the road and not be driving, but make it, you know, having smaller buses, having the trams or the trolleys, having enough people using the water taxis where it's actually viable for them to be there. And I'll just mention that some of these new projects like Elon Rosemary, one of their amenities is a bike repair shop that the residents can use to keep their bikes and to actually repair them. They're going to have racks and stuff where you can go in and work on it, because they do expect that their residents are not all going to have cars, that these people are going to be riding bikes and not going to be putting vehicle trips on the road.
Thank you. We've talked about a lot of changes today, haven't we? I mean, covering the whole history and what's coming in the future. I think one of the things that kind of binds it all together, we have a beautiful, beautiful community, both in the sense of our natural resources, our beaches, our bay, our Myakka River State Park, and all those things. We've got great people who come together to make things happen. And Norm talked earlier of all the different partnerships of people working together. And Mary's out here promoting her How to Get Around Sarasota Without a Car map, which is awesome. That she pretty much did with the help of some volunteers in her bare hands. At Scope, we believe that if people work together and people contribute what they can, that we can solve a lot of these challenges that we face in the future of the community. So, Patrick, I'm pleased for you to have invited me here today. Before we wrap up, because it's time to do so, I just want to thank all the people that helped to put this together. And first I want to start with the Sarasota Herald Tribune for providing the venue for this awesome forum. Let's give them a big hand. And then, of course, visit Sarasota County, Economic Development Corporation of Sarasota County, Greater Sarasota Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Improvement District, City of Sarasota, Scope, Downtown Sarasota Condo Association. Let's give everybody a big hand. We all pulled together to make it happen. Patrick, do we have any other announcements?